Hello there, this is Priyanshi. Hope you are doing well. So, welcome to this series of tutorials on spin in quantum mechanics. So, in this and next few videos, I'll be introducing to you what spin means as a quantum degree of freedom, and it is entirely different from the notion of spin that you have from classical mechanics or the intuition that you have from classical mechanics. So, we'll be formally tackling the problem of spin using quantum laws, and we'll be seeing what a spin operator should look like, or what should be the associated Hilbert space, what are the eigenstates and eigenvalues, and how the spin degree of freedom affects the dynamics of the particles. So these are pretty much the questions that you would like to answer or you are interested in while dealing with any quantum problem. So pretty much we'll be covering everything that you would need to know about at the level of a sophisticated quantum 2 course. So without making any digressions, let's just start straightening things out. So I'll start by explaining to you what we mean when we say that spin is a purely quantum degree of freedom, or because you might have read at certain places or heard that spin is a purely quantum degree of freedom, it has no classical counterpart, and dealing quantum mechanically with spin is different from how you have been dealing with other quantum mechanical problems. For example, say harmonic oscillator or particle in a box or even hydrogen atom. So these facts are associated to the reason that spin has no classical analog, or spin is purely quantum phenomena. So in this discussion, in this video, I would like to explain to you why this is so. So let's start with a physical situation. So an experimental scenario, say, so I consider an electron. So I consider an electron, the reason is that because I'm interested in the quantum treatment. And you know that the quantum effects are predominant when you look at things at very, very small scale. So this is the reason why I consider an electron. So I consider an electron and I prepare my electron in a certain state. And in quantum mechanics, the states are actually specified by wave functions. So I prepare it in a certain state, say psi e, x, y. In principle, it should be a function of x, y, and z. The spatial coordinates, but what I do is, as per my experimental scenario, what I do is that I prepare my electron in a state such that it does not depend on small. So I prepare my electron in a state such that it does not depend on the spatial coordinates. So actually it does not depend on x, y, or z. So this is my special requirement. Now what I say is that now I want to measure angular momentum on my electron. So now we say that on this electron, I want to measure the angular momentum, and this is the physical scenario, that this is the experimental setup that I am interested in. So to proceed, what I say is I want to see what my theory predicts. So what should be the expected result? So for now, just forget about the spin, because I don't know anything about spin. So for now, spin is not into the picture. So forget about spin and let's see what the quantum theory, the existing formalism of angular momentum in quantum theory predicts. So we know that angular momentum has three components, which are called Lx, Ly, and Lz. And in quantum mechanics, all these variables from classical mechanics, they are promoted to operators. That is why I put hats. So now I want to see, so for example, I consider Lz, and that in quantum mechanics, the operator Lz could be written as minus I h bar minus y derivative with respect to x. And I would just mention very quickly that this comes from our classical results. Our classical experience or classical results says that Lz, the variable, should be equal to x py minus y px. And in quantum mechanics, when I promote it to Lz operator, I replace x say in the coordinate basis, then I replace x by x and px by its corresponding derivative operator, and so on. So Using my classical experience, I can write down the quantum operator. So this is an important point. So this is the operator Lz, and I want to see what this operator Lz does to my state psi e, the electronic state, which I said that it is not going to depend. So it does not depend on the spatial coordinates. So now because Lz involves the derivative operator, so I can right away see, and psi e is independent of x, y and z, so I can right away see that Lz operating on psi e would give me 0. So fair enough. Now this particular equation, what this equation tells me is that, so what this equation tells me is that psi e is an eigenfunction of Lz with eigenvalue 0. So that means when I would measure psi, I am certain to get an eigenvalue 0. So that is, the state that I have prepared has no angular momentum in the z direction. So that means, so 0 angular momentum, no, or you could say 0 angular momentum in z direction. Fine. So, and similar results hold for Ly and Lz, because Ly could be written as, in quantum mechanics, I can write Ly as minus I h bar minus x derivative with respect to z, and Lz could be written as, I'm sorry, Lx. Lz I have already written here. So Lx could be written as z derivative with respect to y. So both of these also contain derivatives with respect to x, y or z, and my electron psi e is independent of x, y or z. So again, for Ly or for Lx as well, my state is going to give 0 angular momentum. So what these two equations mean is that this state, the electron that I have prepared now, has no angular momentum. It has 0 angular momentum, doesn't matter whatever direction you measure your angular momentum in. So I go back to my experimental setup here, where I am going to measure angular momentum on my state psi e, and the expected result says that 0, you measure 0 angular momentum. So angular momentum equals 0 in any direction. Okay, and this is what I expect. So this is what I expect, and now what was observed is that, so what I observe from the experiments is that, so what I observe is that I actually get, so this was what the theory predicts, the existing theory predicts, and what I observe was that I actually get some non-zero value of angular momentum, and specifically I get the value of angular momentum for electron. The values are plus h cross by 2 and minus h cross by 2. So these are specific for electrons. So what my existing formalism suggests is that I should have 0 angular momentum, I should measure 0 angular momentum, but what I measure is some non-zero value of angular momentum, and that too very specific values of angular momentum for electron. So now what we can do, physics is a science of experiment, and if experiments, and if you see something from the experiments that your theory cannot explain, then there is some, if there is some mismatch, then the theory has to be adjusted, because you cannot deny what you are observing. So what happens is that what people said was, because these were the angular momentums, so these are the angular momentums that we know of. These are actually specifically called, so these Lx, Ly and Lz are called orbital angular momentums. So these are the angular momentum that we know of, and according to my setup this should give me 0, but still I am getting something. So there is some form of angular momentum that I don't know what is it, but this is some form of angular momentum. So as per the classical habits, so they just said that let's just call it the spin angular momentum. So they started calling it spin angular momentum. So here the name is borrowed from, by name I mean spin. The name spin is borrowed from classical mechanics. So because it was some form of angular momentum that they didn't know of what kind of angular momentum it is, so they just gave it the name spin angular momentum. So you can call it the spin angular momentum, you can call it whatever you want, but the physical picture, now you cannot call it actually because now the conventions has been set, but at that time I'm talking. So they called it spin angular momentum, but so you can borrow that name, but you cannot take the same physical picture that goes with the spin in classical mechanics. So one reason that I can give you straight away is that in classical mechanics, when you talk about spin, so I would just explain to you. So when you talk about spin in classical mechanics, so I talk about classical mechanics first. So when you talk about spin in classical mechanics, then you talk about an extended object. Extended object. So I talk about an extended object, a rigid body, and that rotating about its own axis, that gives you some spin about some of its own axis, that gives you the spin angular momentum. But in quantum mechanics, and I am talking about, say in this example as well, I am talking about say electron. Now electron is a point particle. It has no dimension. So it doesn't make sense that you say that a point particle is rotating about its own axis. It's just a point. It has no dimension. So the point is that picture that you associate with the spin angular momentum in classical mechanics doesn't go with the quantum mechanics. It's a form of angular momentum, that is for sure, but it is not the same spin angular momentum that you are used to from classical mechanics. So what people said was that, so it has no, so that is why, so this is the reason why people call this is one of the ways in which I can explain that the statement which says that spin has no classical analog. Spin, as you define it in quantum mechanics, has no classical analog. Fine. So what people said was that, yeah. So what people said was that we prepared an externally a setup. I prepared my state in my electron in a particular state which was independent of x, y, and z, and then I measured it. So externally I did something, and I was expecting that there should not be an angular momentum, but I did get some angular momentum. So they said that this is something intrinsic to the electron. So they characterize it by saying that this spin angular momentum, so one thing was that it has no classical analog, it does not match the physical picture of the classical spin angular momentum. And the second thing that they said was that it is something intrinsic to the system, intrinsic to the particle, and that particle is electron in our case, because externally you are not giving it anything that could give it an angular momentum. So this must have come internally from electron. It is an inherent property of electron, and it was indeed observed that whatever you do, whatever field you make your electron to interact with, or whatever experimental setup you prepare, you cannot change the spin angular momentum associated with electron is always plus h cross by 2 and minus h cross by 2. So that confirms that spin is an intrinsic form of angular momentum. So now I would like to mention a few things about the experimental situation that I just explained to you. So what I just explained to you is, I explained to you in a very simple terms, a very famous experiment that goes by the name Stern-Gerlach experiment. So this was an extremely simplified version of discussion of Stern-Gerlach experiment. And second thing that I want to mention is that I said that we measure the angular momentum of the electron. Actually, in experiment, what we measure is the magnetic moment. So we measure magnetic moment. This is a related quantity, and using the result for the magnetic moment, I figure out what is the angular momentum. And the third thing is that I said that we measure the angular momentum of electron, but actually you do not measure the angular momentum of the bare electron, because that would include many quantum fluctuations. The quantum fluctuation will actually wipe out all these effects. So what we do is there are certain experimental intricacies. So you measure on an on an atom which has just one outermost electron in the s orbital, one valence electron in the s orbital. So these are certain experimental intricacies. I just wanted to point out that this was a very simplified discussion, just to give you a feel what sort of degree of freedom is spin actually is. So this is about the experimental setup. And one more thing that I wanted to mention in this discussion is that why do we actually want to have a quantum description, want to have this kind of quantum description of spin? So the fact is that every elementary particle that you can think of, for example, electron or proton or neutrons or photons, etc. Each of these elementary particles, they have some intrinsic angular momentum, which you call the spin angular momentum, which we just called the spin angular momentum. And all these particles, because everything is made up of all these particles, so if you want a complete description of anything that you are interested in, then you need to have this. Then this is an interesting and important thing to work with, to know. So the spin description, the spin treatment in quantum mechanics is a very important problem. Yeah, so I believe that this is enough for the discussion in this video. And I would like to mention the key takeaway points for this video, from this discussion in this video. So the key takeaway is, from this video is, first thing is spin, and these are very important points you should keep in mind. The spin is a form of angular momentum. So this is important. So this is a form of angular momentum. Second thing is that it is an intrinsic angular momentum. This is important. It cannot be changed. If you say that electron has spin plus minus half, so it is going to stay plus minus half only, no matter what the external conditions are. And third thing is that it is a purely quantum degree of freedom. Because in classical mechanics, you do not have this situation that you have a spin angular momentum associated with any external body, and it is unchangeable. So externally, you can probe it and you can change the spin angular momentum, but this is not the case with the quantum spin. So that is also because of these reasons that it has no. So this is a purely quantum degree of freedom, and it has no classical analog. So yeah, so this was what I wanted to discuss in this video, in this discussion, and I would be very happy if you are by now a bit comfortable with these points that I have just mentioned. So in the next tutorial, I will continue our discussion from here, and we'll start a formal development how to tackle with the problem of spin in quantum mechanics, and to get a better understanding of all these ideas. So hope you learned something new, and hope the video was worth your time. And if you have any suggestions or any comments or questions, you can write to me in the comment section, and I would be happy to address those. Hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please hit the like button. If you want to get notified for more videos like these, you can subscribe to the channel. Have a great day. Thanks for watching. See you again.